A growing number of congressmen facing accusations of sexual impropriety, and it comes as President Trump is defending Roy Moore and doubting Moore's accusers. So just what signal is the president sending? Let's discuss with CNN political commentator Ed Martin and Christine Quinn, the president of Women in Need. So when we look at this, Christine, we can't help but point out what we're seeing from the president in terms of Roy Moore. He was very clear yesterday, or 2 days ago, I should say, before leaving for Mar-a-Lago. He denies it. He totally denies it. Let me tell you again, he denies it. For the president, it's the end of that story. It's different with Al Franken. It's also different with Conyers. How do we weigh those?
Well, look, I think the president and some of the president and Moore's defenders are very stuck on that. If you say you didn't do it, you didn't do it, which is a very bizarre logic if you think about it, because then any misdeed committed by anyone ever, if they say I didn't do it, it goes away. That's simply not how right and wrong works, and we all know that. But I don't think the issue really should be at the end of the day what the president is saying, because we knew he was going to just kind of try to distract us, that he was some way going to defend Roy Moore because he believes Roy Moore will support his, what I think is a very conservative and dangerous agenda. The issue here is every day you turn on the TV, you turn on Twitter, and there is another person being accused of serious sexual violence or misconduct in this country. And that is the issue. And what we need from the president and all of the leaders is a strong and robust response to that, whether it's in sports, politics, Democrats, Republicans, media. That's where the president is failing. He's sending a message, as he did, in my opinion, in the campaign and in his own behavior, that sexual assault and sexual harassment doesn't exist and shouldn't be cracked down upon. And this really is a shame of our nation, and the president is kind of leading that shame on parade.
So how does that change then, Ed? Because then we have two very different messages and two different narratives in this country right now. We have what Christine is setting up, what she sees, although I will point out the president quick to weigh in, of course, on Al Franken. And yet we have what the majority of the country is talking about, and that is this need to address these allegations of harassment, of assault, and to listen to accusers. I would argue it's important for the president to speak out on this, but to have a clear message. Can we get that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, I think you're right. It's such an important issue. And I was listening to the show a few minutes ago, and I think Chris was bringing up the comment that, each case is different. And that's one of the things that we've learned in this process, that each of the victims and especially each of the accusers' situations and descriptions deserve both honor and respect. And I think that's what we're saying. I want to join that chorus. I think in the case of another thing Chris said is every instance, though, is different in terms of the accusers and the comments. And what the president has said on Roy Moore was he denied it. Al Franken and to some sense the congressman, all the ones we've talked about, have either admitted something or apologized for conduct. In the case of Roy Moore, he said, the 40 years ago allegation, he said it didn't happen. Now, again, I have said over and over, and I want to say it again, we should be very respectful. I'm not saying the women are not telling the truth. I'm saying I don't have a reason to doubt them or know their truth, and neither with Roy Moore. And what we know in politics, and Christine knows this, things down the stretch of a campaign get tossed up. And the president is saying on that one, focus Alabamans on your choice. And by the way, Mitch McConnell and all the other senators have said after someone wins or loses the election or wins the election, they're going to take up the issue in an ethics committee investigation. So we need to have more airing of the grievances, but we also have to be respectful that not every accusation is true in the way it's being presented, and people have a right to deny it if they didn't do it and to face the consequences of the denial. But I think that's what we're seeing some of. So I think it's actually good.
I think Ms. Martin confused some of what I said, right? What's happening here, as you pointed out, is one, the president's hypocrisy, right? Two, because someone denies it, because Mr. Moore denies it, doesn't mean it's not true. Not at all. And I think we're seeing, particularly when you have people and women after women after women coming forward with nothing to gain, right? We've heard story after story of the women, and the families of the women who come forward are attacked, are threatened. Literally, there's nothing to gain, nothing at all. And I think what we need to be careful, and I'd urge people in Alabama to think about, is do you want someone who's both a sexual predator and a liar representing you in Alabama? And there is no evidence to indicate that Roy Moore is telling the truth. We now not only have women, we have people associated with the mall. We have other members of law enforcement and law enforcement affiliated entities saying they knew of this. They saw him in the mall after he was supposed to have been banned. The fact that we're having a conversation about someone who wants to be a United States Senator being banned from malls because he was stalking young girls and calling them out of class in school. This is a level of specificity in accusations that is very hard to dismiss, and that the president is making it about politics speaks to the deep level of hypocrisy and really how the president hasn't dealt with his own sexual harassing and violent behavior.
Christine is in the tradition of the Salem witch trials and the Crucible in New York City. It's very famous for people to get so wound up in what they want to see to not describe what's happening. What the President of the United States has said is, with 40 days left in an election, 35 now, we have two candidates who are running, and the Alabama voters are being bombarded with accusations. And if the standard is anyone who says with sincerity that there is something that's happened to them, then they are true. Then Christine's side of the aisle, every single candidate running for office from now until the end of time will be disqualified because there will be people who accuse them. So all I'm saying is this: the president has reframed the debate and said, if someone denies it, you have to at least respect that. Now, you may all disagree, but I think a lot of the country looks up and says, hey, we do have a system that balances that. And then the president turned the argument towards, there is policy judgments that are going to take place. The next senator is going to vote for a pro-abortion or pro-life Supreme Court pick, is going to vote for the wall funding, is going to vote on crime and other things. And the Alabamans are going to decide. And let's be clear, the Senate says they're going to investigate. And they're not really telling the truth, because the last two senators thrown out of the Senate, expelled, was in 1862 Missouri senators for joining the Confederacy. So
we're going to have to do more on history next time.
And Eric,
because we're getting cut off.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Ed just made it loud and clear. For him, it's about aisles and politics and bills, and not about protecting people who've been victims of sexual assault.
Christine.
He made it very clear it's about politics.
What
that's sad.
I can tell you what it definitely is about is there are a lot of conflicting opinions here, and we're getting different messages, and we're going to continue to dive into those.
And it shouldn't be about politics.
We're going to continue that,
about the truth,
but at a later date. Thank you both for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you.
Thank you and your family.
Appreciate you weighing in.